What's up, Buncombe? This is Abby. Thanks for joining us for our very first podcast episode. Here's the podcast where we're going to dive deep into the issues of Buncombe County, its triumphs, its tribulations, and how we're going to make it better.
Raise a flag of liberty, the land of the free, rejecting tyranny.
Today we're joined by Paul Benjamin. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm blessed, can't complain.
Awesome. So, first of all, could you tell us what you're running for?
Well, I'm not running. I'm standing in the gap for Buncombe County Commission District 1. And I always use that term because I know they always say you're running for office, but I'm standing in the gap for what's going on in our county to make a difference.
I love how you've worded that. So, for those of us who may not know exactly what it means to be a county commissioner, could you explain a little bit about what that is and what you do?
Well, a county commissioner really sets policies and procedures to operate in the county. And the county is involved with, there's multiple municipalities within a county. County also sets the tax millage rate for properties within the county. And as a matter of fact, we're about to go through a reassessment coming up next year, which could possibly lead to raising people's property taxes and so on. And also the county sets the budget for the different departments, like the sheriff and security and things of those natures. So the county has a lot of influence in how we live our lives and how we impact our family's budget and lifestyle in the county.
Yeah. See, when I was growing up, when I heard the term commissioner, I always thought of Commissioner Gordon from Batman with the red phone. So that's super enlightening for some people out there. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. So can you tell us, who is Paul Benjamin?
Paul Benjamin is a son, a father, and a mentor and a coach to others. I'm involved with mentoring men and ministering to pastors and so on, and restoring families, and working to help single moms and the fatherless youth. In my book, No Child Without a Dad, and my other book, Breaking the Father Code, as I address the county, my platform starts with the family, because the county and any government agency really has to do with solidifying and protecting the family. So that's what I do in impacting the families in the community and making a difference.
Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about your books? I've seen on your websites where you've written a couple.
Yeah, in my first book that I've been teaching from for over 20 years is Lifestyle Mentoring, which is training Christian couples how to come alongside and spiritually adopt single moms and fatherless children. Because as you might be aware, 90% of the crime comes from young men being raised in single mom homes. So if we can begin to mentor those young men and their sisters and so on, we can begin to mitigate crime and address the social ills in our community. My second book, No Child Without a Dad, was launched after Trayvon Martin was shot near my home in Orlando area. And that book addresses the whole panacea for the pandemic of fatherlessness in America. It traces everything back to fathers. As the word father means source, and the word family comes from the word father. So if you want to impact the world, you want to first start with fathers. And matter of fact, we also have another initiative called the Father of the Year Award, which is acknowledging and affirming authentic fatherhood. So that book addresses all of those things, all the problems we're spending money on in our nation. That book addresses, those are all symptoms. The book gets to the real cause and equips and empowers individuals, families, pastors, and leaders how to address all the problems in our community and bring practical solutions. And my third book is Breaking the Father Code, which is helping fathers to understand the 70 key principles that will help them become better men, better fathers, and how to influence their family. When you impact the father, you have a 93 to a 97% impact on that family. So if you want to get the maximum return on family impact, you always start with the father, because all the stuff stems from the father's either sins of omission or commission. So we want to address those things. And that's where my third book comes into play, is the Breaking the Father Code.
Yeah, but your books sound really interesting. Now, how long ago have you written those? Have you written them recently?
Well, some are over a period of time. And I think the No Child book came out in 2020. And the other ones came out way before. The Lifestyle Mentoring, that's a course I train couples. It's a 4-hour training, and then multiple trainings come on after that. That's been around for about 15, 20 years. And I just keep updating it from time to time. And then Breaking the Father Code came out last year.
So when your mission, your ministry, when you write those, did that influence your decision to run for office?
Well, I just launched last year the Save America Initiative. And one of the attendees was our local chairman for the area Republican Party, and he saw me speak, and he realized that we needed to make a positive influence in our county, and he asked me to run for office. And I paused for a moment and said, do I need to add something more to my plate? And after talking it over and praying about it, I decided to stand in the gap and said, look, if Proverbs 29:2, if we don't stand in the gap and make a difference, things will go pretty bad. So I decided to stand in the gap and run for office.
That's great. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about what you think some of the biggest issues, like maybe the top 3 issues facing Buncombe County are right now, in your opinion?
Well, we have one of the big things is first, the safety of the family. As you and I are aware, that Buncombe County is a sanctuary county. And right now, as I take the pulse of some of the meetings I've been involved in, a lot of the families are afraid because they know as a sanctuary county, we have many illegals that are in town and crime is going up. Just 2 blocks from where I live is the Givens community. And back in January, they had 15 cars broken into in one night. And reports are coming in from different parts of the city and the county of their cars being broken into in broad daylight. And so people are being warned not to leave anything of value in their car. So they've been cleaning out their trunks, cleaning out their glove compartment. So if you don't feel safe in your own home and in your own community, that becomes a number one concern for families, and especially with carjacking being up and so on. So that's one of the key things I'm picking up as one of the main areas I'm focusing on, is the safety of the family. Second one is law enforcement. As you know, the police department has been defunded, and they're right now 40% below the threshold of being fully functional as a police department, which means when you make a phone call for a situation, you may not be able to get a response because they're defunded. And one of the things that has been impacted by being defunded is the unit that was involved in the human trafficking and the protection of the girls, that was defunded. When they had to appropriate funds, that department was defunded. So now, so that makes that department and our girls more vulnerable to the human trafficking division. And then fourth is taxes. As you know, if the family has to work more and more hours, that means they don't have time to spend time with their children, which increases mental health dysfunction in the homes, because now these children, they're pretty much latchkey kids because mom and dad are working because they have to work more to pay taxes. And right now, with the tax increase and the cost of food, the cost of gas, everything goes up. So when you have a sanctuary county and you have extra people moving into your county that are not contributing to the tax base, now you have to drain the budget from the families to pay for these services in school and counselors and in extra teachers and in extra areas of need within the county. That drains resources. So that means the cost of everything goes up, your taxes go up. So it all has a ripple effect. And the more burden you put on a business through regulations, the business pass on the cost to the consumer, which are families, which puts a burden on the families. And so now somebody like our fire department being paid $16 an hour, how could they afford to live in our community and serve our fire department and can't pay their bills? And I spoke to the police department. Their officers can't afford to live in the county because it's so expensive. So they have to drive and move out of town and live 35, 40, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour to drive into the area. And you know, back in the day, having a police car in your driveway within your community helps to deter crime in that neighborhood. But we no longer have that luxury because they can't afford to live in the county. So those are all things that we need to look at. And to remember, our county is $22 million in the deficit. Yeah. And they'll have to raise taxes somehow to try to fill that hole. And again, that puts a burden on the family, which is the number one unit and the number one factor I'm trying to protect and serve in our county.
So in your role as county commissioner, how do you plan to fix those issues?
Well, first we have to spend money within our means. And just like how you and I, we have to balance our own family budget. If your checkbook says you only have $2,000 in there, which is not real in today's society, most people are living paycheck to paycheck. But if you wrote $4,000 in checks, you know what's going to happen. It's going to start bouncing. And so, but in our county, you keep writing checks, and all you do is keep raising taxes to pay your bills. So first thing, we have to look at our budget and see where a lot of the money is being misappropriated. And for example, there's part of the budget set aside from the general fund for reparations. That's a misappropriation of funds that was allocated for something else. So whenever you misappropriate something to another budget line item, you have to take money from somewhere else. And that means ultimately you end up back in the pocketbook of families. So we want to address that, see where spending is being wasted and being spent on things that are not beneficial to the family, keeping them in mind that the families are number one goal for protecting and serving the family. So that'll be one area, and I'll be looking at all the other areas to refund and fund our police department and make sure that they can be fully staffed to serve and protect our community. Then we need to address the fact that we're a sanctuary county, and how could we change that status and stop allowing the influx of illegals into our region. And that means criminals and those that are doing wrong are coming in, and that puts extra burden on our law enforcement to mitigate the crimes that are being committed and perpetrated upon the family. So all of those things will be addressed. And there's so many other issues, we won't have enough time on one podcast to address it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'd like to go back to what you said. You had mentioned something about reparations. So the black population in Buncombe County is less than 6%, about 16,000 out of 270,000. So I'd like to know your opinion on reparations and maybe explain the difference between equity and equality.
Reparations, first thing, it's a tax on our taxpayers. And I always address the fact that slavery in America was never a racial issue because we're one race. The book of Acts 17:26 says, from one blood came every ethnic group. So we're one race, many ethnic groups. We all came from Adam and Eve. So let's realize that any so-called racial thing, racism, is not, because racism is just really sin, where we don't love and accept each other because we're all from one blood from Adam. So that's the first thing. And the blacks were sold into slavery by blacks. So to come up with reparations, and there's no slaves alive, and slavery, we forgot that quite a few slaves were also enslaved by black owners. And so if we really want to talk about reparations, it's really a tax on the individuals, and the money again is being spent on programs that the government decides where they want to spend the money. And any extra burden you add to the families is really a tax on families. So I'm not in support of any form of reparations of any kind because we all have the same opportunity, right? Equity and inclusion, DEI, this is another form of adding more tax to the family and going into the pocketbooks of individuals because we're all born with the same opportunity to breathe the air that God has given us, and we're all given an opportunity to thrive and to prosper. America has produced more wealthy people and millionaires and billionaires than any other country in the world. Yeah. Right? We look at Oprah, we look at all of our ball players that are raking in millions and so on. So if there's any problem that we have in our country, it's based out of our sin and our relationship with God, because we all have the same opportunity to go and produce and to multiply what God has given us. But Jesus said, the poor you'll always have with you. And this whole thing comes back to when you look at the war on poverty, which was not by accident, it was intentional. When Lyndon B. Johnson launched that back in the 60s, 8 out of 10 homes in the black community had a father. Now in the inner cities across our nation, you talk about 1 or 2% of the homes have a father in there. And so it is actually reverse the impact and the value of families, and now it's create more economic slavery. We have more economic slavery today than we had physical slavery in the whole world. And where you have people dependent on the taxpayers for their welfare and their food and housing and utilities, we've created more of a welfare state by launching the war on poverty, $22+ trillion later. So we need to address that and allow people to use the opportunities that are given them and to encourage them to be the best you can be and become educated, equipped, and informed, and to help them launch their own business. And so if we really want to help any community, is to go in there, allow them to be educated, stand with them, help to mentor them, and help them to become productive citizens. As I always mention, there's one thing of giving you a fish, that's for today. Teaching you how to fish, that's tomorrow. Third, we want to teach you now how to own the lake. Now you can feed your village. So that's our goal, is to empower the communities, empower individuals to be self-sufficient and not to depend on the taxpayers to pay your bills and to pay your housing and all of those different things.
Yeah. So going back to that, I don't know if you're aware, but the living wage is now in excess of $24 an hour in Asheville. But there are very few jobs around here, especially for, say, someone my age, and that's even comes close to that. How do we help people that live in Buncombe County that have to have 2 jobs just to survive and are barely getting by?
Yeah, that becomes a problem as it is right now. You and I know our fire department, they're crying out to get a raise from the $16 they're at. Matter of fact, Chick-fil-A starts you off at $20 an hour. Yeah. So as we look at the high cost of living, again, it's because we have created a culture and an environment where we misappropriate the taxpayers' money and spend it without the regard for this money is coming from the taxpayers. When I look at budgets that are coming in from each department, they just keep requesting more and more money. You see, when you're not paying money from your own account, it's easy to spend somebody else's money. But the Bible says money that you don't earn is quickly squandered. But money you have to work for, you protect and you steward. So therefore, our government has been misappropriating money on frivolous things that are not productive and wholesome for the community. So therefore, they come back to us and ask for more money, which has to increase our expenses overhead, and the ripple effect goes out through the city and through the county. Case in point, we bought 5 buses. That's $5 million, and the buses don't work. So that's $5 million out of the taxpayers' money. What can you and I do with $5 million, right? So if we stop spending money on frivolous things that don't work, that are not embellishing and enhancing the quality of life for families, we're misappropriating things, and then that just drives up the cost of living in our community.
Yeah, that very, very well said. Speaking of the family, going to our kids, we have a bunch of schools here in Buncombe County and Asheville that are failing. 70% of the schools received a C or lower on their state testing. How, as a county commissioner, can you help our schools prosper more?
Well, to address the school issue, in the business world, when you have something that's failing, you pivot and you make a change. Right now, with parents leaving the schools, taking their children out because of the agenda in the school that's teaching the kids things contrary to our family values, parents are taking their children out, putting them in private school, some are homeschooling, and so on. So now you have a failing system that is still trying to survive. It's like the old adage, if the horse is dead, don't give the horse mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Don't call for a prayer meeting. The horse is dead. You'd have to get off the horse and find another horse to move on. So we've been trying to fan the flame of a dead and dying system to keep it alive even though it's dead, giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to a dead system. We need to pivot. You have Asheville schools, you have Buncombe County schools that are draining their resources, but the return on investment is not there for our children. So we need to address that and to get teachers coming back to, instead of asking you how you feel and how you identify today, we need to get back to teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic and produce healthy, vibrant students that know how to read and write when they graduate.
So we're almost out of time, but could you just take a second and let us know where we could find more information about you and your campaign?
Yes, if people want to go and join the team and be part of the campaign, they can go to renewbuncombe.com. That's renewbuncombe.com as we bring renewal back to the county. And so we'd love for you to join the team. If you have a passion to serve as a mentor, as a volunteer, to help fatherless youth, single moms, and to bring different programs to our community, just let us know and we can team up and make a difference.
Great. I love it. You have been such a pleasure to talk to. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to our audience before we go?
Well, for every season in our life, God is always looking for somebody to stand in the gap. And as we know, a lot of people stand on the sidelines and don't get involved. But this is a time, if we want to make a change, as this program is called Fix Buncombe, what are you willing to bring to the table to fix our county, to fix our families? As I stepped out of my comfort zone, I could be doing anything else in my ministry, but I stepped out to make a difference, to serve the county. I'm not here to rule, I'm here to serve. And that's what government is all about. Government's supposed to serve the people and to make life easier by providing those services. So you can join me in the cause, and let's fix our county and fix our nation for such a time as this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for all that you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, everybody, and be sure to tune back in for What's at Buncombe.